101. I'm Vanessa Anceloni, and we are here with Luis Almeida. Now, we would like to remind all of us of what we have been studying in Spiritism 101. Last week, we understood and learned about the elements of the universe. God as the creator of all things, first cause of all that is in the universe. Spirit as the spiritual principle, the intelligent beings of the universe. And matter, the material principle, our companion in this journey in which we have our internships to learn, experience new opportunities. So tonight, we are here to understand a little bit further about the formation of the planets in the universe. And as you see, we get all the information for this study part of the Spiritism 101, basically from the book, The Spirit's Book, by Allan Kardec. In this book, Kardec had several questions that were answered by spirits, superior spirits, enlightened spirits, who through different mediums throughout different countries answered these very questions that now we discuss here. So the first one on this series of formation of planets, which is chapter 3, we understand that Kardec wanted to know a little bit further on how the universe was created. And the answer of the spirits was very simple and clear. The universe could not be created by itself. The universe was created by God. Let's remind ourselves that God is the supreme intelligence of the universe. It's not a being, it's not a spirit. It's the supreme intelligence. As the supreme intelligence, it created the universe. Now specifically, Kardec wanted to know how God created the universe. And the superior spirits answered, by His will. And that's the reason why we hear this very phrase in the Genesis, in the Bible. Let there be light. And there was light. Light in the sense of the creation, of the thought of God. So now, how do we understand about the formation of the planets in this universe? We need to verify that every single place in the universe is occupied. Even if our eyes cannot see or perceive it, every single space in the universe is occupied. There is no void in the universal space, as we learned last week. Now, how these planets were formed, how any planets are formed, because creation doesn't stop in the past. God is creating all the time. So Kardec received the following answer, that the planets are formed by the condensation of matter disseminated in the space. How do we understand that? The only way to understand this condensation of matter is to remind of Louis' explanation last week, in which we got to know that the universal space is filled in by an elementary matter named the universal cosmic principle. The universal cosmic principle is the elementary matter that is manipulated by our thoughts. And with that, we form our lives. When we get more evolved as pure spirits, we get to be the ones in charge of putting together planets, building them. As once Emmanuel explained us in Chico Xavier's book, that is not yet translated but soon will, A Caminho da Luz, Path to Light, in which he explained very clearly that our planet Earth was formed by the hands, of course, quoting and unquoting, the hands of the superior spirits. And in this group of superior spirits, pure spirits, was Jesus. And we know now that Jesus is one of the governors of our system, and more specifically, the governor of our planet. And this information is in this book that we just mentioned, A Caminho da Luz, Path to Light, psychographed by Chico Xavier, and the spirit who gave the information was his mentor, Emmanuel. Now let's go a little bit deeper and ask ourselves the same question that Kardec did. Can we destroy these planets? Not we people. Can these planets that are formed be destroyed? Well, as much as houses are built and can be destroyed, planets are the same. But how does that happen? For the very principle that they are formed by matter. And this matter can be, as we would say, recyclable. As the planets evolve, the planet not only evolved in the humanity that is within this planet, but also in its geology. As we can see, planet Earth is also evolving, so it can certainly be renewed, as the spirits answered in this very question 41. God renews planets as well as the beings that live on them. It's just the renewal of the material state. And not only that, but Kardec very interestingly finished this part of the explanation of formation of planets by asking how long does it take to form a planet? That's a very interesting question. For example, he asked about Earth, and the spirits, very interestingly, they said, we don't know the precise amount of time. We would be making fools of ourselves if we presume to tell you, for example, the exact number of centuries required to the formation of each planet. Only the Creator truly knows it. And the reason why we read this answer, the answer of this question, is to mention that we in Spiritism understand that the spirits who communicate through mediums are not more evolved just because they're spirits. And the sincerity in the words of this spirit express not only that they are honest, but they are good spirits. Because when we know they are not evolved, they answer any question any way they want to. So the answer reminds us that, of course, every planet takes time to be built up. Now, how does life start in each planet? So now we go to the topic of creation of living beings. Kardec asked this question. It's very important for us to understand the beginning of life in a planet. Science does ask the same question. And now, we, in a way, the Spiritist principles merge with the principles of science. In which way? In a way that everything begins from chaos. That's how spirits answer. Everything was confusing and mixed up at the very beginning. And then later, very gradually, as everything in nature, these elements were settled, and then there were the conditions for this spiritual principle to connect to that, those elements, the material elements, and start its internship, making it into organic beings. Here in this very point, we'd like to recall that there is a phenomenal book that is still to be translated, and if you're listening to us and you want to join us in this journey, please email us to ssg@ssbaltimore.org, because it's a tremendous, a phenomenal book on the evolution of two worlds, psychographed by Chico Xavier again, and the spirit is André Luiz, a spirit doctor that brought us information from the spiritual realm. And in that very book, André Luiz develops this very understanding of the creation of the living beings on planet Earth and other planets as well, explaining us that we as spirits are already an advancement of the state of the evolution of the spiritual principle, because it starts simple and ignorant, and then through internships in each kingdom of nature, from the mineral kingdom to the vegetable kingdom to the animal kingdom, until it reaches a spirit form as we are now in the human form, and then its internship in the human race. But how specifically, Kardec asked the spirits, how specifically did the human race appear on planet Earth? And the spirits answered the very same phrase that we heard in the Bible, that when the conditions were appropriate, they appeared. In other words, they were formed out of the dust of the ground. So here we start recalling what we learned maybe in previous incarnations, and for some of us at the church we got to learn about the first man and the first woman on planet Earth. They were called Adam and Eve. Louis, how is it true that Adam and Eve were the first man and woman in this planet?
Well, as Vanessa mentioned, and as the Spiritist book explains to us, life forms and human beings didn't pop out of existence out of nothing, but that they gradually evolved from more primitive forms. This, of course, leads us to think about the figure of Adam, what is representing the figure of Adam. And the superior spirits teaches us that Adam is in fact a figure of language, is a representation of a significant step in the evolution of human beings. And they even assign a date for Adam's existence around 4,000 years before Christ. If we look at nowadays science, what happens 4,000 years before Christ was the appearance of the first civilizations in the Middle East, the first cities and true civilizations in the Middle East. So what Adam is in fact representing is this, is a step, a transition, a transformation in the history of humankind. Later on in other chapters of Spiritism 101, we will come back to address in more detail the figure of Adam. But for now, we can understand this. We can understand that Adam is in fact a representation of a transition. This also means that the Spirit's book totally agrees with the Bible. We are not saying that the Bible is wrong or false or anything like that. This must be very clear in our mind. But in fact that we should not take the Bible literal or too literal at the meaning at its letter. It's a representation as it could be explained and as we could understand when it was written. Now, what is very important of this idea that Adam is a representation is one of questions of Kardec, in which he asks, if we don't have a common ancestor, if we, all of us, all human beings, we don't come from a single pair of parents, Adam and Eve, so should we still consider ourselves as a single family? Should we still see us as brothers and sisters? And here I would like to quote from the Spirit's book, Questions 54. Open quote, all of you are related by your common relation to the Creator. You are all brothers and sisters in God. You are all animated through spirit and share the same goal. You have to guard against the tendency to be too literal in these matters. End quote. My friends, what this means is that we are a single family because we come from the same God. It's not the flesh that unites us. It does not make any difference who is white, who is black, who is yellow, who is taller, who is short, who has more education, less education. We are all brothers and sisters because we were created by the same God. So it's the Spirit that unites us. So just because Adam is a representative figure, it does not mean that we are not brothers and sisters. We are all brothers and sisters in the same Creator. continue this discussion, we need to address the point that, as Vanessa mentioned, that there are several planets in the universe, several that we can see and detect, and many others that we don't even dream about yet. So Kardec asks the Spirit, how about these other planets? What are their purpose? Well, if we understand that God does not waste anything, and if we understand that God did not create this immense universe, this immense space just for us, or just for us to look at, it would be a waste, we must admit that and the superior spirits confirm that other planets serve their purpose too. They serve their purpose to be inhabited by other spirits in other states of evolution. Some are more primitive than Earth, others are more advanced than Earth. So all planets of the universe were inhabited, are inhabited, or will be inhabited. Now, when we mention that they are inhabited, doesn't mean that the body is as we understand it, as we see our physical body. The physical constitution will be appropriate to the physical conditions of these planets. So the body, the physiology will be appropriate to the physical constitution of the planets. And this, of course, will vary according to each planet. So God is not wasting the universe just for us to look at it, but in fact is a school on different planets where the spirit will reincarnate in one planet or another conform his or her evolutionary needs. These also take us to another point, which is which is the state of Earth. How is our planet compared with other planets? Are we on the top of the moral and intellectual scale, or are we more at the bottom of this scale? Well, if we consider that Earth is a planet of trials and reconciliations, and if we look inside ourselves, our thoughts, our acts, we will see that in fact Earth is very close to the bottom. It's one of the less evolved planets. We should not take this as a disappointment or anything negative. In fact, we should take this as an opportunity to evolve. And we should consider ourselves and meditate about this. What can I do to improve myself, to make myself better than myself, to compete against myself and not against others? So what can I do to transform our planet, our common house, into a better planet, in a planet that's more morally and intellectually evolving? So now, Vanessa, how can we do that? How can we transform ourselves?
That's a good question, Luis. The best thing is to focus our thoughts in positive ideas and get to know that as we learn today, that we have the divine seed in all of us. We have the potential. We just need not to wait for someone to create the conditions for us to germinate and blossom and produce fruits, but to help ourselves by creating the proper conditions so we can germinate and blossom and be beautiful flowers, perfuming the universe with our uniqueness, and also to produce fruits that can certainly feed the hunger and give water to the thirsty. And this is how, my friends, we close tonight's Spiritism 101. We invite you to come back next week when we are going to discuss a little bit further on these elements of the universe. Specifically, we're going to talk about the vital principle. So if you want to understand a little bit more about healing, come back next week and we'll tell you all. Thank you. Thank you, Louis.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie.